So it's definitely been a minute since the last time I feel like we kind of just sat and talked and had a good little update on everything. So I feel like that's where we should start. So by the time you guys are seeing this or listening to this, this means that Shanice and I have just ended the Motherhood series, season 2 of the Motherhood series. And that series had a lot of gems in it, a lot of good word, a lot of good advice. Um, and just I feel like season 2 was like a realer experience of like what we're feeling and going through as moms of preteens. I don't know. I feel like we really touched on it in season 1, but I feel like season 2 is where we really started to like dive into like our experiences and some things like that we are real life going through as moms of preteens. But with season 2 of the series, we had a lot of issues. And not with each other, but issues as far as like technical difficulties, editing, graphics, all like literally everything you could probably think of, we went through. And I was starting to get really discouraged with the season because I was like, God, I'm trying to put this out here so that other moms can like hear and know that like what they're going through isn't abnormal, like they're not alone when they're going through these things with having preteens. And even then, it still felt like, but is it worth it? Because we had so many issues. Like, oh my gosh, we recorded the first few episodes at a time. The first episode, the audio completely scrapped. Then we ended up being able to put it back together, but then at some point we had to use some of our camera audio, so like it sounds off. And then my camera wasn't working at all, or it wasn't working the correct way, so we had to completely scratch the video and only use audio. And then there were some issues with that, with the first couple of, really throughout the season, really throughout the entire season, there was a camera working, one camera not working, some audio working, some audio not working. At some point, we had a guest, and like towards the end of that audio, it just completely cut out, just completely stopped. Stress is not even the word. Like I was really going through it. And it was a lot to deal with. Um, but I knew that we couldn't just scrap the episodes and forget about the season when, again, a lot of gems were dropped and we were really being authentic and transparent in those episodes. And that's why we created the Motherhood series, because that's what it's about. And we just created this platform of talking about things that we also needed, which is why we wanted to create this for other moms. But there were a lot of lessons in those issues, and I'm grateful that I'm able to learn like when things aren't going perfectly when it comes to the podcast or YouTube or whatever it is, like how to work through those things and how to figure out how to fix certain things. So it's not, I don't take it for granted. There were just a lot of issues that I would have wished didn't happen. But regardless, again, learning the lesson and the issues and just figuring out how to move forward was the best thing for us to do. So, um, life updates. Wouldn't you want to know? My son had surgery. He broke his clavicle and had surgery about 2 weeks ago. He's been doing amazing those first 2 weeks. Well, I would say 3 weeks, because he broke his clavicle. About a week later is when he had surgery. And then he had like a week of recovery. He's still in like full recovery. That takes about 6 to 8 weeks, but he's able to go back to school. He's feeling okay. He just can't play sports or anything right now, which, if you know my son, is driving him crazy. Um, but surgery was not on my bingo board for 2024. Um, yeah, that was an adjustment for the both of us. Um, it really changed a lot. Like, even with how much I had to help him around the house. And he couldn't do his chores. And I was just like, now I gotta take out the trash. Like there were so many things that like you don't realize interrupt the routine of your day to day. And it was crazy. But in the midst of that, I feel like he needed a break and I needed a break. So while I hate that it was at the expense of his clavicle, we both needed a break. And so we were able to spend some time together and just kind of chill and focus on family, like the support system that we had really showed up and showed out for us. Um, Everyone bought him balloons and they know he's a sugar troll, so they bought him candy and just tried to make him comfortable. And I'm so grateful for those who were really there for my son in his time of need. But he is doing amazing, and I am so, so happy about that. There's been like hella adjustments at work. And so my brain, I feel like, is always bouncing around. But I mean, it's just that it's an adjustment. And I'm grateful that every day I just look forward to speaking to God about said adjustments so that I can make them. Um, with that being said, I've also been talking to God about fulfilling my purpose and my passions. And with being a creative, I feel like sometimes we can get burnt out just because of life. And sometimes it's hard to figure out how to get back to that place of just being a creative. And so I've still just been really trying to hone in on being a creative and what that means and what that looks like for me in this season and how I'm able to still move in my purpose and my passions and not just get stuck in life because so much has been happening. I feel like it's so easy to kind of just like fall into that and then stay stuck in there. But I refuse to do that in this season of my life. It's not happening. Um, so still just working on that with God, of course. Also, hold on, I gotta show you something. If you are watching this on YouTube, then you can see this huge binder I'm holding in my hand. Maybe you can see it. Do you see how thick this is? I've only gone halfway through the binder. There's other notebooks to it. And basically what this is, it's funny, my best friend mentioned this term and it's kind of what I'm calling it, but it's my generational blessing. We talk a lot about generational curses, but when I was speaking to her about this, she was like, your grandmother left you a generational blessing. And we got to keep that going. Yes, ma'am, I agree. I've been calling this my inheritance from my grandmother. The word says that a good person leaves behind an inheritance for his children's children. And in this book, basically, is a bunch of different topics, a prayer for each topic, and a list of scriptures per prayer. And my grandmother passed about 5 years ago. And for those that know, she was like my best friend. Like she and I were very close. And then when I had to marry us, they became very close. And she had a lot of books. My grandmother was very heavy into her word. And when she passed, I now have a lot of the things from her house in my home. And my mom and I were cleaning out some of her old bins that she had, just trying to get rid of some stuff and, keep whatever is needed. And I found this book. And I was like, I don't know what the purpose was for this, but I'm grateful to have it because at some point after she passed 5 years ago, I sat this book on my prayer corner, kind of just left it there, didn't think much about it. And then one day I was in the car crying out to God, and I was like, I just wish that I had a book that had topics for me to be able to come to you, to pray to you, and then to help me find a scripture quickly because Googling isn't like it might be the easiest thing, but it's not always giving me what I'm looking for. And trying to keep up with certain notebooks of me writing down scriptures. Also, I can't get to a specific topic quickly. And I was like, I need something to be able to reference your word quickly. And God was like, you do have that. And I was like, you right. Thank you. So I came over to this book and I've been keeping track of each topic so that I can go back to it and then read each prayer and go to the scriptures and the word for each topic. And y'all, it's not just, I mean, you see how thick this book is. It's not just like peace and patience and it's not just that. She literally had a prayer in here for me that I needed for my job, and it's just titled full-time job. And she just goes into a prayer about having a job that you feel like you feel recognized and you feel rewarded in, and you're doing the best you can, not just when your bosses are looking, but as you're working as if you're working for God, which is where it says. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so that night that I was like writing down all the topics, I asked my best friend, like, what you need? Like, I got half of it down right now. And she was like, I need something for a decision. I was like, I got you. Or she said decision or peace. And I said, I got you. So there was already a section that I had passed about renewing your mind. And so that's what I intended to go to. And as I opened the book, it's funny because we always say something told me, but we know what something is. Holy Spirit told me, open up the second book. And I was like, well, why would I open up the second book? I haven't gone through the second book yet. Regardless, I do what I was told. Open up the second book, and I'm kind of just skimming through it, and there's a folded page. And I'm like, huh, wonder what that says. And I flip it over and it says making a difficult decision. I'm trying to tell y'all, the guy hears us. He loves us so much. And I just love when I'm reminded of how much he hears me and how much he loves me, because I hadn't even gone through the second book. How was I supposed to find that? I wouldn't have. But God knew where to find it for her because that's what she needed. And I can't wait to go through all of it. But when I say there's every topic, there's topics about preparing a budget. There's topics about studying for an exam if you're in school. There's topics about being a more loving mother. There's topics about praying for your husband, to be the spiritual leader of your household. There's so many topics in this book. And I have no idea what her intentions were with this, but I'm so grateful to have it. And I pray that it was on her spirit to think, this is bigger than me. But knowing my grandma, it was. And this could have just been topics that people were coming to her about. Because if you knew my grandma, you knew she was one you were calling if you were like, hey, I got a problem. I need a prayer. I got a situation. She was a praying grandmother. She was heavy into her word. And so um, this has been my generational blessing. And I'm so grateful to be able to have this in my life and to help those around me who need the same thing, who may not have had the same upbringing or the same generational blessing that I have. And so, with that being said, there's a lot that I'm doing in my life, and the expectation for this YouTube and podcast is to expect me to do a lot because I am a lot. That's very much me, and that is my brand, and I am my brand. So, stay tuned.